talking. So this is Izabela Vidovic, and this is Jena Carpenter, and we are both in our latest film, The Accursed, which is an Almost Normal Productions film. So we're just here to talk about the film a little bit and just other things, artist related. So Jena, you play Aisha in the film, and I think you're the most interesting cast member that I'm getting to interview because people probably don't really know what you look like.
Yes, totally. I look very different in the film than my normal self walking on the street.
That's true. I mean, you do appear in the film a little bit like yourself, but I feel like nonetheless, like the poster and everything, people are really seeing you with all the prosthetic and makeup.
Totally. And
Yeah,
shout out to our amazing makeup team, Raluca and Lisa. You guys were just so great with helping to bring Aisha to life every day.
I know. They were really fantastic. I love that's like one of my favorite stories to tell people is how your character's look came to life because it was so last minute. Like it happened right on set. We had no idea. I mean, the directors obviously had an idea of what they wanted, but it's different when you have an actor and a face to now put that vision to. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that look really came to life like right at the 11th hour.
Totally. And it was so exciting to kind of be a part of that and like have that important character modeled
Mhm.
after me. And it is funny, like even though it looks very different from me, I can totally see myself in the look of the character as well. So that was really fun.
I think that's what's really cool about it is that obviously it doesn't look like you, but like, there's that essence, there's that sense of like there's an actor beneath all of that makeup, which really goes to show like your performance and being able to kind of humanize a really scary character.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I what I think is really interesting about you and playing the character of Aisha is because of your background. Like you have a very different background than acting. Like I would love for you to kind of talk about that and say how it helped you embody this character.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, along with acting, I do a lot of different contortion, aerial, fire stilts, all of that different cirque style performance. I also have done a lot of stunts, rigging, and a lot of scary creature characters kind of based off of my contortion. So been some really cool projects on Fear the Walking Dead. I've been in a couple other projects, being a creepy character. And it really is interesting to move into this mode of something that's so dark, which is very different from my normal life, and then put your brain into that space of like, all right, how would this character move and how would this character react to things? And I really
Right.
enjoy that.
Yeah, I just think that's super interesting because I personally I haven't done a character to which their movement and their body language was such a big part of creating that character. Like obviously every character that you play is gonna talk differently and walk differently, but Aisha was really kind of an extreme version of that, and I find that really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an awesome process. And when you're inside those characters, it always is a little hard to realize what you look like on the outside. Like sometimes you forget, you're just walking around feeling like your normal self, and then suddenly you go use the bathroom and look in the mirror, and you're like, oh my God, this is how I look to people.
I
um,
know.
the directing side of it is so important, I feel like, in order to help create that. Like we all have a visual in our head of how we normally look, kind of, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And then, when we get in front of the camera and we're moving, we kind of know what it looks like, but not exactly. And so I was very thankful for how specific and the specificity of the vision our directors had to help
Right.
bring out the performance in Aisha that we see in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, the prosthetic thing is such a funny thing you mentioned. I've done crazy prosthetics, and that's very true. It's because you're in it all day and you kind of get used to the feeling of it. So you talk to people as if you're just you. And then you go to the mirror and you're like, oh my God.
Yes. Oh my God, this is what people are seeing.
I
Ah,
know. But then other people kind of get used to it too, especially if that's just kind of the daily do.
And
Yeah, so I guess in that same, in that same realm, you've been in the spotlight as you've just mentioned. So like what can you say about how you've experienced yourself being in the spotlight? Like have you found yourself worthy of that? I feel like that's a funny word to use, but it's fitting for this context, I think.
yeah, well, and I feel like that's such a good question for everyone because any of us who perform all the time, it takes a lot of self-confidence and, trust in ourselves that when we get out there, we're going to be able to embody this role, we're going to be able to do this performance,
Hmm.
and we're pushing ourselves to do something new that we may not have tried before. Some things could be really scary, especially like in the stunt sense, in the aerial sense. You may be
Yeah.
pushed to try new and have to rise to that level. And I think all of us have those moments of not feeling worthy or not feeling up to challenge. And
Right.
so for me, I feel like it's how we deal with those moments and what our process is for um, moving past that into this is a challenge I can accept. This is something I'm excited about. And
Yeah.
I tell my daughter a lot that fear is the other side of the coin of excitement, or anxiety is the other side of the coin of excitement. And so you have a choice. You can get stuck in the fear and anxiety side of it, or you can say, hey, this is something new. It's going to make sense that I'm going to be a little nervous, but I'm so excited to try this and see where it pushes me and see where it leads me. And I
Yeah.
some of our best performances come out of that challenge of being pushed and allowing ourselves to go with that wave and go on the ride.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's because fear and excitement are both forms of anxiety, just like one is positive and one is negative. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about being able to flip it to your favor. Um, yeah, I think that's really cool. So have you then, being a performer and having that background, have you found yourself using your creativity as sort of an outlet, like an emotional outlet, uh, whenever you've struggled to maybe open up to things with other people in your life that you may be close to?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, one thing that really helps with that is kind of ritual. Like I'll have a series of different things that I do to prepare myself, to put my mind in place. I find breath is a really strong part of it, like remembering to take a deep breath, give yourself the time to like settle into where you are, maybe acknowledge the feelings of whatever it is that you're dealing with, and then be able to let that go and say, all right, and now see what comes out of this. And also just being open and just allowing yourself to be affected and moved by what's happening around you, by the energies of the other people, the scene, the set, the director, like everything else to help you channel the best vision of whatever role it is you're playing in that
Yeah,
particular project. Yeah.
I think that's definitely true, at least like for me. I completely agree with that. And I think, you know, kind of going back to the Accursed, the film, for anybody joining the film that both Jenna and I are in, it's our latest film, and you play the character of Aisha, and I think characters like that are so outside of yourself and that are so different from everyday life sometimes benefit us the most because they really force you to step outside of your comfort zone. And at least for me, like if I'm having a rough patch, as we all do, life ebbs and flows, and I happen to get an audition or I get a job where I get to play a character that is very different than me, it feels very healing because I get to step outside of myself and my world completely and enter this other character. And by the end of the gig or by the end of the audition, I find myself feeling better.
For sure. Yeah, it gives us a chance to like let go of everything else and just focus on that immediate moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really great thing to bring to life in all ways because sometimes we get so preoccupied with anxiety about the future or worry about in the past that we actually aren't even appreciate the experience that we're having right at that moment.
Hmm.
And life is so precious. It's just all about being there in each moment and making the most of it. So anytime that we can just take a deep breath and be like, here I am now, I'm just going to let go of that worry about that
Yeah.
day or whatever. It just allows us a more, I guess, I don't know, beautiful experience of whatever it is that we're doing. Um, just that alone without all the entanglements of the past, the future, anything else, our kids, our life, our dog. Like,
Right.
yeah.
No, I completely agree that. I love how this I love this conversation. It's turned from like a conversation about our horror film to something really like beautiful and wholesome, and it's making me feel good. Just being an artist and getting to talk about these things. I love talking with, fellow artists, whether they're actors or writers or whatever, because I think we all have so much in common, no matter like how different of a field we may feel like we're in. Because, a background in like contortion may feel really different than like having a background in acting, but there's so many similarities, I think,
Yeah, there are. And
you
then it
know.
comes from this unique place as well. And it's great in the world that we're in to be able to share both the commonality of what we're all doing and creating and then our own unique little slice of that world. I loved that
Absolutely.
first of like how many amazing people there were bringing their energy, and it was such a magical experience that time. Like looking back on it, there were so many great moments.
Yeah. Yeah, there really were. There really, really were. It's like right before the pandemic too, which is wild when you think about it. It
No,
feels like forever ago.
another world back then.
I know. Well, if you could sum the film up in one word, which is a tough one, what would you use?
So that is a tough one. Let me think about that for a second. I
Yeah.
guess I would say um, maybe tradition. Maybe I would use
Oh,
tradition. I'm
I like
tempted to use
that.
faith, but I feel like so much of it was surrounding the traditions of this close knit circle of
Uh-huh.
friends and family. And in certain ways, even Aisha's reaction and, what went into motion, I won't give too much away. But even some of that, I feel like, was based on that closeness, those traditions that held them together, and how betrayed she felt because those were basically like her sisters.
Right.
And so she was trapped in that place of anger and hurt and betrayal because their
Hmm.
traditions held them so close together, and you know
Yeah.
that happened.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good word to tie in all of the themes of the film, because Goddard, I think, and George both used family,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I thought was also a really good one, and it kind of is along the lines of tradition, because it's uh, the film does deal with like long-standing traditions with the importance of like family and like bonds, even like friendship bonds, because Aisha and Hannah are almost like sisters. And like what betrayal can do can do to somebody. Obviously, it's extreme in the case that the accursed takes it, but I think that it's really cool how it plays with that, like how certain cultures, and especially like centuries ago, like things were taken seriously, things were taken differently.
Yeah, and that was something that I thought about a lot with my character, with Aisha, since she was sort of like one of the lead protagonists that created the experience that this whole family had, not
Uh-huh.
short term, but like throughout their whole lifetime. They had this
Right.
curse. And I'm like, how strong would you have to feel that betrayal in order to hold on to it for like generations of a family,
No,
And
exactly.
yeah, there was something very old fashioned about it. Like in the old days when you know, bloodlines were everything. And if a betrayal happened to your bloodline, then you would hold that out for generations and generations.
Right. No, people really held grudges, and it wasn't taken lightly. To offend somebody, to betray somebody, it's really about like a breach of loyalty. And people really took that to their grave. Their word, their loyalty, and there's something to be said about that, of course. I mean, I think there's something admirable about taking loyalty and things like that to the heart, taking them seriously, because you know they're big things that I feel like are tossed around often. The quality of being loyal, the using the words "I love you," things like that. That I feel like as time went on, people started to use more casually, more loosely, and it's interesting when you kind of look back at how things were way before us.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I find that fascinating. I mean, obviously the solution is not to cast a curse on somebody's family, but I just think that what it symbolizes is very interesting.
Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
I will say that to me as a person, loyalty is one of the most important things that I
Hmm.
value, like friends and family and everything like that, because it says so much about us, what we stay loyal to and who we stay loyal to, and then how we represent that with our actions.
Completely. Completely. Because I mean, it's your integrity. You have your word. Like at the end of the day, that's what you have. And my mom always told me that. She was always like, you only have your word, you know? And she was obviously the co-writer of The Accursed. So it was funny when I read it and I'm like, you really stayed true to that, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Which was funny. But yeah, no, I mean, if any of you have not seen The Accursed yet, it's available on iTunes and on VOD. It's the links in our bio here at Almost Normal Productions. So highly recommend checking it out. It's a really great spooky family film for the holiday.